The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is in the northern Tongan island of Vavau, where he's meeting with other Pacific leaders for the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Retreat. This is an opportunity for leaders to have private discussions in the company of only one senior official typically, and on the top of the list will be some of the most sensitive and complex issues that the Pacific is facing, in particular the crisis in New Caledonia. The government of New Caledonia and the government of France, which retains control over the territory, have been at loggerheads for quite some time over a planned visit by a high-level Pacific mission in the wake of rioting that rocked the territory earlier this year. The Pacific wants to mediate, but France is not convinced that that's a good idea. And the trip collapsed a couple of weeks ago because of disagreements between France and the government of New Caledonia over who should ultimately have control of the mission. Now the two sides are very close to a compromise. The French ambassador announcing this morning that terms of reference had now been agreed on for the Pacific leaders at the retreat to give a final sign-off on. If that happens, it's a major step forward on a crisis that has caused enormous angst and anxiety throughout the Pacific. The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, for his part, he said that he believed the Pacific did have a role in the crisis and could play a role to help bring peace.
Of course the Pacific can play a role and is playing a role. And I met with the President, Mapao, yesterday. It was one of the bilateral meetings that I had. It was a really constructive meeting. He wants to see peace in New Caledonia. He was obviously, like others, but particularly the President, of course, like other people in New Caledonia, would have been distressed by the violence that we saw, the disruption that we saw in recent months, and he spoke really positively about calm returning. There will be the delegation of 4 people from the PIF, from the Pacific Island Forum, to New Caledonia, and I'd certainly hope that it can play a constructive role. We all want to see peace in the region.
However, Mr Albanese has also this morning faced questions about yesterday's landmark Pacific Policing Initiative, the new plan that will see huge amounts of Australian taxpayers' money, $400 million, ploughed into an ambitious plan that would lift policing capability throughout the region, establishing a new training facility in Brisbane, new centres of excellence across the Pacific, and a standing police force that would be able to rotate throughout the region to deal with local crises. Mr Albanese was caught on a hot mic, a recording that was made by a New Zealand journalist joking with Campbell, the US Deputy Secretary of State, about, quote, going halvesies on the entire initiative. In other words, splitting the cost. He also heard from Campbell that the US was pursuing a similar initiative before Kevin Rudd, the Australian ambassador in Washington, dissuaded the administration from doing so. Mr Albanese was pressed about what the details of that US plan was. He responded quite forcefully by saying that it was unethical for the journalist to record him in this way, and saying that the two men were simply having a joke.
No. The video is what it is. Someone, it's up to them to, whoever did that, to think about their own ethics when it comes to journalism. It was a private conversation. It was a jovial conversation, a friendly one. It is what it is. People try and read something into it. You must be pretty bored, frankly.
It was on the plenary floor. It was open to media.
Oh, you must be pretty bored. Journalists tend to identify themselves. Professionals, I hope that you do.
Mr Albanese will return from Vavau to Tongatapu and Nuku'alofa today. After that, he'll head straight back to Australia. Many other Pacific leaders, however, will remain on Vavau for at least another half day or so before returning to Nuku'alofa tomorrow. That's when they're expected to issue their final leaders' communique, which will give everyone watching this entire meeting very closely an idea of what the Pacific thinks about some of the critical issues that they're facing today. way, from New Caledonia to regional security, the policing pact, but also a whole lot of other complicated issues, including strategic competition, deep-sea mining, and, most importantly for the Pacific, what can be done to try and help them withstand the devastating impacts of climate change.